Are you stalled out on your log press? I know how frustrating that is. Been there before. But I've used the frustration to actually learn some new variations that help me push through those sticking points and hit some new PRs. Today I want to share one of those variations with you, and that's the board press. You probably heard of the board press before. It's one of the more fairly common bench press variations. I've seen lots of people use it over the years. However, I use it a very specific way to help with my log press. So first of all, I want to show you how I figure out what height of a board to use that's going to carry over best to the log press. So first, let's start with how to figure out what height of board you need. For me, what works best is 4 inches here. Hey now. And how I figured this out, let me show you from the side. So if you imagine I put the board on my chest and I'm going to bring the bar down to where I would touch. Roughly about there would be where my hand is. Okay, so let me just put the board down and we'll show that again. So if I bring my hands in roughly to where I would touch, now if I just invert my hands and curl them up, this is exactly where a 12-inch log would sit for me. So you see that again? Here I am touching the board and curl up. Here I am ready to press the log. So the size of the board is going to vary for each person, and depending both on how much you arch or how little you arch and how big of a diameter log you use and where it sits on your chest. So you saw for me, this 4-inch board puts it pretty close to where my hands would be. However, that might vary for you. So play around with different size boards and see what works best for you to mimic that position. Board pressing is best done with a friend, with a partner, but if you're like me, training alone in a cold gym, you can still get it done. So make sure you have a tight shirt on. Take the board, put it underneath your shirt, put it into position, and as long as you stay nice and square, the board will stay where you want it to. All right, so I'm not going to go into the intricacies of setting up for your bench press. You can save that for another time, but once you're set up, if you've never done a board press before, it's very much like the bench press. You're going to take the bar out, get it set in your starting position. You're going to bring it down, touch the board, and press. Really easy. Essentially the same as a bench press, obviously with a short range of motion. Before we get into showing you what this looks like with some heavy weight, I want to say a couple more things about the setup. First of all, use the safeties, pins, straps. I don't care what you have, but use them, especially if you train alone. Even if you don't, can save you a lot of heartache and obviously injury. What you want to do is set these safeties up just below the height of the board. That way, if you get stuck on the board, especially if you're by yourself, it's no big deal. You can just roll it off the board. The pins will catch it. You're good to go. You can figure out what went wrong and adjust for your next set. Okay, second thing, and this is more about the execution of the movement, and you'll see this in a second here. As I bring the bar down, I pause it when it touches the board. Okay, I'm not just touching and going. I'm not dropping it significantly into my body and heaving it out. I'm going to pause on the board. That's the first thing you're going to see. The other thing that I do that specifically mimics the log press is after I touch the board, I'm going to let some of the tension out. And this is because, and any of you who log press will know this, when you get up into the clean position here on your chest with the log, you are not going to have a perfectly tight upper back like you will have when you lay on the bench and you can set up as perfectly as you want, get everything as tight as you want. That doesn't happen when you're out in space without that board behind your back. You know, your shoulders are moving in the log press, so they're not going to be in the same position. I try to mimic that by, after I touch the board, I let go of a little bit of tension. Not all my tension, because with heavy weights, that's not going to be a very smart or maybe safe thing to do. But I do let go of some of it. And then what I do is I regain my tightness and fire off my chest. And that's going to mimic the log press, where you're dipping down, gaining tightness, and then exploding up. Man, that felt good. All right, let's talk about programming this. So for me, I like to use this either as a secondary exercise on, say, a log press day, bench press day, any kind of pressing, could be dumbbells as well. Or I like to use this as an alternative to the log press. Say, for example, when I'm in a cycle like I am now, where I'm taking a bit of time off of the log press, but I still want to keep that power. So typically how I do this is I program sets of 1 to 3. If I'm really trying to push the weight on the log press, this is a pretty hard stimulus when you're also pressing very heavy. So I might cut this back to sets of 1. Right now, when I'm not doing any log press, I'm doing these for triples, as you saw. And the reason is why I don't do a ton of volume on these is because this is actually a very heavy overload stimulus. So this is a great tool you can use if you're looking for overload. For example, I recently set a PR, pressed a 350-pound log. This was 365 for 3. So 15 more pounds than my max log press, sets of 3. I could probably do a few sets, not going to today. But that's a big overload stimulus. So that's why I really like this for log press. When I want to feel a heavier weight than a log, it's sometimes very hard to get a similar feeling or even get very much heavier, say doing a standing barbell press. But at least with this, especially if you have strong triceps, you can lay down and get a nice overload stimulus out of this. So there you go. I recommend sets of 1 to 3. Obviously, play around with it, see what works for you. People have been doing board presses for, decades. So always experiment. All right, time for me to move on with the rest of my workout. I hope you guys learned something today. This is honestly one of my favorite variations, whether it's for the log press, any overhead press, bench press as well. Go ahead and give it a try. If you like it, if you don't like it, let me know in the comments. If there's anything I can do to help you break through some of your sticking points, give me a shout. Happy to help. All right, take care, guys. Talk to you later.